Well, good evening. This is Houndog Steve coming to you on a Sunday evening, which is the 5th of November. And I thought I'd give a little run through of the news that that caught my eye this week. And so here we are. Fines eyed for distracted walkers. These are people like this young lady here who is just completely engrossed in her phone. And they're talking about fines ranging from $50 for the first offence to $125 for a third offence. There will be exceptions when pedestrians are calling emergency services or when they're continuing a phone call which started before crossing the roadway. Well, what can I say? You know, if you want to argue with a 18-wheel Mack truck, please be my guest. You may be in the right legally to walk with your head down, buried into the phone, but I'm afraid you know, this is where rubber hits the road in the world of reality. And talking about the rubber hitting the road, gates open for Saudi women. Here is Saudi Arabia is just bursting out of the gate, as it were. They are going to allow women to sporting events. However, they will be herded into a segregated area called the family section, so they're going to be herded into the family section, which is completely separate from the all-male section. General Sports Authority describes the decision as one that will allow families into the stadiums, a term authorities use to refer to the public spaces that accommodate women. These family sections are for women who are on their own or who are accompanied by a male relative. Now, of course, in this article it doesn't mention whether the women in the family section can actually see the sports venue from where they're located, because, you know, you never know, there may be men playing on the field, and God forbid that the women should see the men or the men should see the women. So they may actually be in some kind of domed structure, so that even though the Saudi government is allowing women into sporting venues for the very first time, they may actually be restricted from viewing the sporting event itself because it's going to break several other protocols. I'm being facetious, of course, but you never can tell in this wacky world that we live in, huh? Yep, Saudi Arabia leaping ahead in the modernization, coming into the 12th century. Keep it up, Saudi Arabia. You'll get there sooner or later. And of course, what would we expect from the spendthrift liberals, NDP? You know, I was taught that in good times you pay down debt, and in bad times you use that debt to be able to get you through those rough times. Okay, but in Ontario and in the rest of Canada, Ontario feds pile up bad debt in good times. Well, let me know how that's going to work out for you, because things, as in everything, go up and down, backwards and forwards. There is an oscillation. So for every good time there is a bad time, and for every bad time there's a good time. That's where these old saws come from, these old sayings that we never use anymore, but which were filled with wisdom. Oh my God, is this ever going to stop? Case against Trump no stronger yet. Okay guys, look, you've been investigating Trump for 2 years. The NSA, the CIA, the FBI, every alphabet agency that you can think of in the United States of America has been trying to find some connection between Donald Trump and Russia and collusion in the election. And the unfortunate thing is, you know, for Hillary Clinton, is that the more they seek to uncover about Donald Trump, it just seems to uncover more about Hillary Clinton. And of course now I'm referring to Donna Brazil's leaked book segments that basically say that Clinton took over the DNC in 2015, long before the election started, long before any of the nominations had begun, and rigged the election so Bernie would not get the nomination. So, oh, and of course Uranium One, which has now taken down Tony Podesta because he represented the Russian company Uranium One, and of course his brother John Podesta was the campaign manager for Hillary Clinton. And that deal facilitated the shipping of 20% of USA's uranium to Russia. So keep digging, guys. You just keep digging yourself further into an early grave. Well, look at what we have here. Oh my goodness, who couldn't see this coming? This is the deleted emails from the Oakville power plant scandal when Dalton McGuinty was resigning from office under certainly a very large cloud of propane or natural gas, no doubt. So anyway, they tried to charge, they deleted 620,000 emails. Okay, that were all to do with this power plant scandal. $1 billion flushed down the toilet in this scandal. Okay, so they charged some interns, the assistant to Dalton McGuinty and his assistant, who got her boyfriend to delete all of the hard drives of Dalton McGuinty's office staff. And so now they put them on trial for doing that. Yes, it's going to lead back to the fact that they were told by someone above them, a politician no doubt, to delete those hard drives. And wouldn't we just love to know what was on those hard drives and in those emails, those thousands of emails. So along with that and the acquittal of Sabera and Lockheed on bribery charges, didn't even make it to the trial actually. Once again the government escapes by some shady finagling, and they may have got off on the letter of the law, but they certainly haven't got off on the spirit of the law. And I think all of us in Ontario are watching this government. And I actually wouldn't be surprised to see this government prorogue before the election next year. Proroguing, of course, is that measure. It's like an emergency measure to shut down government. It's usually used in wartime. Well, it really is a matter of national emergency, but ever since Stephen Harper used it so many years ago, I believe he used it twice in his tenure, basically just to shut down the deluge of problems and questions that were assaulting the Conservative government about its actions, its omnibus bills, and so on and so forth. Because when you prorogue a government, everything in government comes to a halt. Every bill that is in the process of going through government passage has to go back to square one and start again when government reassembles. So this is really just a way of diverting problems, diverting public attention, and I would not be surprised because the Liberal government is in real trouble right now. This just speaks for itself, doesn't it? They've given people who are using a safe injection site a heated tent. This is the government who has blown $1 billion of taxpayer money on two cancelled gas-fired power plants for the province, and just spent $39 billion accruing an extra $4 billion of interest on a loan to give Ontario Hydro ratepayers a break in their rates. That's $5 billion flushed down the toilet by this government. And you have people who are addicted and in trouble, and many of them addicted because of the OxyContin scandal. And if you give them a heated tent, you couldn't give them a building, a room where they can be safe and warm and maybe address some of the other services that might be available to them. I mean, this is an absolute disgrace in my mind, really, when you think of the wastage of money and then the chintziness of a heated tent. So now here we have an interesting little story. This is pot sellers could be fined. Pot sellers could be fined $1 million for illegal selling of pot. This is these storefronts and this kind of stuff, and actually anyone else that will be selling pot, along with Ontario names first cities to host legal marijuana shops. And there are going to be 40 initially, run through a subsidiary of the LCBO, and they plan to have 150 standalone cannabis stores by 2020 and an online store at which you can order 24/7 and get delivery through the Canada Post or one of the delivery companies. Let me see. The government introduced its marijuana legislation earlier this week, which contains new penalties for people that are convicted of illegally selling or distributing cannabis, including fines of up to $250,000 and or a jail up to 2 years less a day. For every day those people or businesses continue to sell marijuana after being convicted the first time, they will be subject to further fines of up to $100,000 and $500,000 respectively. Attorney General Yasir Naviki said the government will clamp down on illegal distribution channels. So let me get this straight. Let me just understand how this is going to work. Apparently, as far as I understand, everyone who wants to will be allowed to grow 4 plants of their own for personal use. All Ontarians will be allowed to carry 1 ounce of marijuana on their person without prosecution. So how are you going to know what is what? I mean, from what I understand, a plant can yield anywhere from half a pound to a pound. So we'll just take the low end and we'll say that's 2 pounds of marijuana. Oh, sorry. Cannabis. Marijuana is now apparently a racial slur to somebody or another. I don't know who, but so okay, we'll better call it by its proper name, cannabis. So what about the people who aren't in a situation where they can grow their cannabis for medical reasons, but they are allowed to grow their 4 plants? Are they going to get a friend? Is that going to be okay? Is that person going to be considered to be selling marijuana to their friend who is not in a situation to grow themselves? How are you going to discern that? Are you going to require a written agreement between those 2 people? There are lots of situations like that are going on all over the place. Quite often, if you are on a disability or in pain or using, these kind of medications, you're usually in some kind of apartment, which is not always the easiest situation. And of course, maybe these people don't have the physical capabilities. There's quite a lot of work involved in this. There's some toting, there's some watering. You've got to be, fairly physically active. So how are you going to get around this? I just don't see how this is going to work, or how you are ever going to get a prosecution to stick when you really can't determine the situation surrounding, the arrest. You would never be able to prove, because it would be just your word against somebody else's. Anyway, we'll see how it's going to work. It's going to be kind of interesting because I'm assuming that this is going to be very heavily subsidized because the LCBO is unionized, and those workers get paid union wages, which is quite a bit above the minimum wage plus benefits. And there will be a special storefront, which no doubt will have to be either purchased or rented. And if they want to undercut the black market, they are going to have to subsidize with everyone's tax dollar. So let me know how you feel about that, in an effort to redo the Prohibition era. And anyone who's read the history books will know that Prohibition did not work, and it will not work this time. They're trying to control the whole thing, and it's going to blow up in their faces. That's my prediction anyways. So here we have, we're ethics. We're on to Morneau, Bill Morneau, the finance minister of Canada in the federal government. Of course, he's been tied up with having shares in his possession in his own family company, whilst that business is doing business with the government, which of course is a complete conflict of interest. And they're playing fast and loose with the law. Yes, there is a loophole that allows him to do that, but it really looks pretty bad when you are the finance minister and you hold all the shares to the Bank of Canada, and the Bank of Canada is using the services of your family company in which you hold a significant amount of shares. The optics aren't quite that good, Bill. So I was fascinated by this photograph, and this is Bill Morneau, of course, and how angelic. He's at an inquiry, he's answering questions there. And doesn't he look like the angel? Doesn't he look like he's going straight to heaven, and butter wouldn't melt in this guy's mouth? And me, I'm just one of the little guys just trying to run a business, trying to do the best for the country, trying to serve the people of Canada. Well, Bill, what can I say? You should take a look at yourself through the eyes of a regular working person, because it looks pretty slippery to all of us. Finally, somebody, Tarek Fatah, a Muslim, is saying don't use the word Islamophobia because it's divisive. And this is one of these words, along with many words that we're using these days, and applications, okay, which is undefinable. What is Islamophobia? Is it the way I looked at somebody? Is it because one eyebrow went up? Is it because I squinted because the sun was in my eyes and it looked like I was pulling a face at somebody? This could be directly tied in with the stand your ground law in Florida, which I think is absolutely absurd, which basically says that if you feel threatened, you can defend yourself preemptively. Okay, think about that for a second. You can defend yourself preemptively because you felt threatened. Well, what does that mean, to be threatened? A cop's interpretation of the idea to be threatened, I'm sure, will be very different from, a couple living in an apartment in the Bronx somewhere, who are 90 years old. The term Islamophobia means different things to different people. You should not be using a term that is so nebulous. When you get into stuff like this, it needs to be clearly defined. Okay, so that is basically the things that caught my eye this week in the news, and I hope you have a great week coming up, and we will talk to you soon. Oh yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe below and click on the little bell to get all the updates. Please comment. I do love to hear your comments, and thanks to all of my subscribers for following me and taking the time to actually write a comment and be part of the discussion. Because when you're part of the discussion, you are part of the solution. So you take care, you have a great week, and we'll talk pretty soon. See you now.